Hello, this is Shai. Today on The Joy of CAD, we're going to set up annotations within AutoCAD 2017. Today, we're going to focus on annotations. So what are annotations, you ask? Annotations include all text, dimensions, leaders, or even tables which you use to help define a model. Although the primary commands for each are available under the Annotation panel in the Home tab of the ribbon, we are instead going to focus on the Annotate tab at the top. As you can see, there are individual panels and more complete options available for text, dimensions, leaders, tables, and even other options. You should also notice that there is a Style Manager available for each by clicking on the little arrow in the bottom right-hand corner of the panel. And there's a Style Manager available for each of these options. Before we continue, let's discuss the difference between standard and annotative styles. Standard are fixed height text styles. In other words, if you insert a text for a particular object at, say, 1/8 of an inch, and you increase the size of that object, the printed size, for instance, that text will show larger. And as well, if you decrease the size, the text will also get smaller. Annotative indicates that AutoCAD will automatically adjust the size of the annotative object to match the scale specified. For example, 1/8 inch annotative text will always print out to exactly 1/8 inch height, no matter how large or small you show your model, and regardless of the scale shown in your viewport. Look for the three-sided annotation symbol, which represents that you're using an annotated style. Let's now set up a text style. So we'll select the small arrow, and you can see we've brought up the Text Style Manager. So we're going to highlight annotative. We don't want to use standard. For the purposes of our lecture, we are going to avoid using fixed height standard text styles or any styles. So we're going to select annotative. That's the default annotative option. We're going to create a new text style, name it something unique. About, in this case, I'm going to name it my name. And we're going to assign it a font here. Let's use something common like Arial. And we also need to specify a paper text height. This is the height which the font will print out. So we're going to use 1/8 of an inch or 125 thousandths of an inch. You also want to make sure that annotative is checked. And there are some other objects that you can adjust, or settings that you can adjust. If you want to show your text upside down, backwards, vertical, you can match your text to the orientation of the layout view that you're using. You'll use that later on. That's a handy feature. You can also adjust the width factor of the text that you're showing. For us, the big options, we want to adjust the font. We want to set the paper height. We want to make sure that it's annotated. And finally, set current. So we will now be using the Shai's text style. And if you notice, in the text panel, Shai's text showed up here. So there are two kinds of text that we can use. We can use multi-line or single line. So let's start with a single line. And it wants to know rotation angle. I'm going to enter 0. And example, single line text. Okay? So that would be a single line text option. You can also enter multi-line text. Example, multi-line text. So we have two text options here. We have the single line text and the multi-line text. So the quick keys to enter the single line text would be TEXT, or text. And for the multi-line text, MText. Now you should also note that the multi-line text has a lot more formatting features available. You can set justifications, you can set columns, you can bold, you can do lots of things with the multi-line text. Very, very useful. The single line text is a more simplified text insertion tool. You can use it for a number of options. But the multi-line text option is the more full-featured. There are several ways of modifying your text. You could either double-click on the text. For single line, I could now modify what I want to show here. You can do the same with the multi-line text. Or you can highlight or double-click, and for the multi-line, it brings up your formatting options at the top. Single line does not have those options. You can also highlight text and adjust them through your properties palette. You can actually adjust the contents of the text through this palette. You can adjust sizes, lots of features here. You could also use the DD Edit option, although this is the less preferred. You could select the text, and then you could make the changes that way. Note, all these formatting options are available for MText. Again, very useful. And you can also set up multiple text styles as well for different heights, 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, whatever needed. So you could work within multiple text styles. So let's remove these. Let's now set up a dimension style. So like before, we're going to highlight the annotative dim style, and we're going to create a new style, and we'll call this Size Dims. Notice annotative, continue. And now we're going to set some of the features. You notice there's lots of options to set with your dim styles. So we're going to set up an 1/8 inch dim style, and we're going to change a few options in here. Extend beyond these, we're going to adjust 125 thousandths. And we're going to go to symbols. We want to show arrows. Our arrow head size we want to set to 125 thousandths. We're going to adjust a few more little things here. Break size is fine. Go to our text tab. Text style, we're going to use our size text that we created earlier. Change the offset. Oh, that's good. Our fit, we want to make sure that annotative is checked. And with regard to primary units, notice we can set architectural, engineering, decimal, lots of options. We're just going to leave it decimal for now, but we are going to change the precision for this example. We'll show 2 significant figures. And that should be it. We don't need to make any adjustments for tolerances or alternative units at this point. we're going to select OK. And now we're going to highlight Shies Dims, set current, and close. Notice the little tri-sided object here looks like a throwing star. That means that Shies Dims is the active or current dim style that we're using. And finally, we're going to set up a leader style. Notice there's no annotative style set for this. We're going to say New. We're going to check Annotative, and we're going to name it something unique. Say Continue. Again, it brings up our style manager here. And we're going to change the size to 125 thousandths. Our leader structure. Adjust our landing distance. Reduce that by a little bit. We'll set it to 250 thousandths. Notice annotative is checked. For content, mText is fine. Our text style, we'll go ahead and use Shies Text. Text height is correct. And the landing gap, let's go ahead and adjust that. And we'll say OK. We'll highlight this. We'll set current. Again, you could set multiple styles here if needed, depending if you needed different style, different heights of text or whatnot. And we'll close. So we've now set up our text style, dimension style, and leader style. So now let's draw an example rectangle. Go back to our Home tab, Rectangle. Let's draw this at 4,2. So a 4-inch by 2-inch box. And we will dimension this on two sides. Let's see. We can either, using the dimension tool, we can either select the points that we want to dimension, or we can select the object. And now we will insert a leader here. And now we have this object drawn and dimensioned. So let's go ahead. Notice this is 1-to-1 in our drawing area. Let's go to our layout view. So now we have this object. This is our default viewport. We're just going to leave it. Actually, we will. Let's make it a little bit bigger just so we have a little more room to play with. So if we click, double click within this viewport, we see this odd scale set here. So let's adjust that to 1-to-1. Okay? And we can use our mouse and pan this around. Now let's lock this viewport. If I double click outside, I'm now in paper space. So this represents the paper. And if I take a measurement of this side, this should be exactly 2 inches. And it is 2 inches. And my text height, if I measure my text, it should be 1/8 of an inch tall. And it roughly is, yes. So excellent. So my drawing is shown at 1-to-1 scale, 2 inches high, 4 inches wide, and my text is 1/8 of an inch high. So let's now double click inside our viewport and change the scale. Notice I need to unlock, and I'm going to make it 1-to-2. I don't see 1-to-2 here, so I'm going to create a custom scale. We'll add a scale that is 1 paper unit to 2 drawing units. We'll just call this 1-to-2. Okay. So now, if I go down here to my scale, I'm going to select 1 to 2, and you should see my object change in size. So now, let's lock that. And if I double-click outside and I take a measurement, it's now shown at 1 inch. However, my dimension adjusted accordingly and is still showing at 2 inches. Let's check the height of this text to make sure that it is in fact still showing at 1/8 of an inch. And it is. Very good. So we've now adjusted the size of this object using scale, or adjusted the viewport scale, which has reduced the size of the object on the paper, but my text has not changed in height, indicating that it is set up as an annotative style and it is working properly. If I go back to my model, if I highlight this text, I look at properties, sure enough, I have my Shies dim style set up with the annotative symbol. It is marked as an annotative. My text height and arrows are all set correctly. Notice there are also a lot more options with regard to text that you can adjust, or with regard to your dimensions. All of these are adjustable features. Well, this concludes this section of The Joy of CAD. Enjoy!